Jeb Bush.
Loser.
Okay.
What a coincidence.
It's so funny you should say that. Marco Rubio.
Confused.
Ted Cruz.
I was going to say nasty. He's not really nasty. I mean, he's been very nice. Here he goes on and off. I'll say nasty.
Nasty. Okay. Hillary Clinton.
She went to your wedding, right?
Wow.
She did. In a certain way, evil.
Whoa. Bill Clinton.
Intelligent.
Hey, I'm going to stop there. I'm good.
I'm interested in all the words that he edited out.
I know.
No, there was a lot of editing going on there.
I never liked that stuff.
Oh, yes. One more. Donald Trump.
Brilliant.
That one was easy.
No. Now, Putin said Trump is brilliant, right? And the Republicans wanted me to disavow his statement. He's a horrible person and all. I said, I'm not going to disavow that statement. Why would I ever disavow that statement? No, I'm only being nice guy. I would say nice person. I'm a nice person.
All right, news roundup information overload hour on this New Hampshire primary day, and that was Donald Trump with no filter, being the iconoclast that he has been throughout this campaign. You know, you crack me up sometimes. Maybe it's because I know you, and I know you do that sort of thing tongue-in-cheek. Some people get so frustrated about that, and it's funny to watch people like bubble and fizz like Alka-Seltzer.
Right. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Exciting day.
Yeah, I bet you are excited. You know what? There's every poll has you up by a pretty significant amount, and by all accounts, and I know you're not taking it for granted, but by all accounts, it should be a good night for you, and the fight seems to be over second, third, and fourth, and fifth place.
But you know what, Sean? If I win by one vote, I'm happy.
Well, you know what? That's the way elections are. Don't you think, look how bad the polling was in Iowa, and it's been bad in 2000, 04, 08, and 2012. And then people say, oh, somebody didn't do so well. Well, the poll numbers are historically awful. So why should we believe them?
Well, it's a caucus state, Iowa. And, if you give back those Ben votes, all of a sudden I have a win. And I didn't think the poll numbers were that inaccurate. Ben had a literally where, votes were taken away. And it was very, very sad to see that happen. I looked at Ben. I spoke to Ben. He was so devastated by what happened to him. And, you take away those votes. That was a lot of votes that was taken away from him. That was a sad incident, Sean.
On the other side of that, if you look at the Democrats, there's a lot of evidence coming in that Bernie Sanders actually beat Hillary in Iowa. And
well, I think he probably did. I mean, that was a very strange deal. Didn't they have 6 flips of a coin?
6 flips of a coin, and more importantly, as they now begin to recanvass, every time they recanvass, it's in Bernie's favor.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I think there was something very fishy. The chances of winning 6 flips are very, very small, and I really would like to look at that coin. I may want to buy that coin.
I think I want to buy that coin, too. I've never had that kind of... Look, I've been to casinos in my life, including yours over the years, and I've never had that kind of luck there.
It's pretty unusual that you get 6 in a row, and think about winning an election by getting coin flips like that. So, and it was so razor thin. So that was an interesting. That was a whole interesting evening. I think New Hampshire is going to be amazing. I look at the polls. I look at the amount of people that are out. It looks like it's going to be a record. Supposedly, that's good for me. I just don't know. But literally, if I win by even a small margin, I'm very happy.
It's interesting because other candidates are getting hundreds to come, and I've talked to the different campaigns and I interview the different candidates, and they'll tell me, oh yeah, we had an overflow crowd. We have 400 inside and 200 outside, and they're thinking in hundreds, and your events are in the thousands, and you've had thousands outside.
Well, we've had thousands, but last night we had Verizon Arena. We had 5,000 people in a blizzard. It was horrible. We had people that worked for us and volunteers that were in accidents. We had 3 people in accidents, automobile accidents getting in there, and it was brutal. And we had close to 5,000. We had about 5,000 people there last night, and it was amazing, actually. It was an amazing evening.
I guess it's probably hard as you go from town to town and city to city, event to event, to stand back and catch your breath. Well, how do you analyze your success in this arena that you had never been in before? Why do you think you're resonating so much with so many people?
Well, I think I've been, very successful. I built an incredible company, and a lot of people didn't even know how successful, and then I put, filings in. I mean, these are very, very serious filings, and I filed almost 100 pages of documents that showed I built, I have some of the greatest assets in the world. very low debt, tremendous cash flow, the way the country should be in the sense of low debt and cash flow, et cetera, so we can take care of our people. And I don't say that in a bragging way. I say that because that's, I think, a very important element. People want to see that, and that's what they want for the country. We have $19 trillion in debt, and we have politicians that have no clue what to do, and I do. I know how to do a big number on that debt. I love dealing with debt. I've used debt over the years really well, and I understand debt, and it can be dangerous, but if you know what you're doing, it's a beautiful thing. So I think they see that, and, they also like the fact that I tell it like it is. I'm not necessarily politically correct, although I can be. I can be very politically correct. I can be.
Yeah, but that's not you. That's not.
Well, it's not me, and I don't think I'd want to be that way, and it wouldn't be very much fun, to be honest with you, right?
Yeah, no, and I think that's probably comes through that you're having a lot of fun on the campaign trail, and you definitely give fits to some of these other guys. And my response is I don't understand half the time why they just don't kind of give it back to you a little bit in a fun way, too, and some have, but they just can't seem to keep up, which is kind of hilarious. Last night, before you went to the arena, I was with you, and I was in that same snowstorm, and you said something last night in a way that really kind of caught my attention, because you were talking about how there's a million other things that you could be doing, millions and millions of dollars on the table that you could be making, and then you talked about all the people that you're meeting on this campaign trail and what it means to you to try and create a better country that will help them. Explain that.
Well, I meet so many people, and they're such great people, and, our country's behind the eight ball. You hear about a 5% unemployment rate, and you and I were discussing last night, it's not 5%. It could be 25%. There's a theory that it could be 42%. And you have close to 100 million people that, are out of work, that aren't working. And when they give up looking for a job, they're considered employed. So, that was a statistic and a formula when they come up with the 4.9% and the 5%. That was developed by politicians to make themselves look good. And honestly, it's just not the right number. So, when I get 20,000 people in Oklahoma and 35,000 people in Alabama, and, we get these massive crowds, if we had a 5% unemployment number, I would not be getting crowds like I'm getting. There's a lot of turmoil. You probably cover it better than anybody, Sean. There's a lot of turmoil out there. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of anxiety, and there aren't the jobs. We've lost our jobs to Mexico and China and Japan and all of these countries. We're importing all of their products, and we're not making things anymore, like, relatively speaking. And I know how to turn it around. I'm going to bring our jobs back. I'm going to strengthen the borders. I'm going to do things. We're going to get rid of Obamacare and come up with a great plan for much less money. That's actually better for much less money. And so many other things. We're going to take care of our vets. We're going to build up our military. I mean, our country really is in bad shape. And I think people know that, and they trust me, and they want to go with me, I hope.
It's interesting, because think of things that are very basic to you and fundamental to you that make so much sense. You're going to build the wall. You mentioned I'm going to waterboard them, sure, and more. I ask anybody if your kid is taken hostage. Let's say 3 guys come to your house and they take your kid hostage, and you tackle one of the guys as they're leaving. The other 2 get away with your kid. Is there anything you're going to not do to get the information about where they took your kid?
Absolutely.
I mean,
well, it's sort of interesting because during the debate, they asked the question of Ted Cruz, and he was tentative in his answer, and I understand that. They talked about waterboarding. Would you do it, essentially? And he was very, very tentative. I was actually surprised. And then they looked at me, and they said, well, what about you? And I said, not only would I waterboard, I'd go a lot further than waterboarding. They're cutting off our heads. And I prefaced it by saying, in the Middle East, there's never been a time like this, Sean. It's like, I think of medieval times. That's when I used to hear about cutting off heads, right? And now we're cutting off heads again. We're back to cutting off heads. So I said, let me just tell you, folks, I got a standing ovation. I said, they're cutting off heads of Christians in the Middle East and others, by the way. And they are vicious, violent, and they are horrible, horrible animals. You're worried about waterboarding, which is a lot of people, that's on borderline torture. You understand that. That's about minimum torture.
No, listen, Ollie North and every Navy SEAL and all these our top military guys, they go through that as part of their training.
Right.
And we only waterboarded 3 people.
Look, it's nothing nice about it, but it's your minimal torture. It's your it's politically correct torture. That's the way I call it. And I said, I not only would approve waterboarding, and I said it very strongly, I said I would not only approve, I'd approve much worse than that. People are chopping off the heads of our people and the heads of other people and the heads of Christians in the Middle East. And can you imagine if you're in ISIS and all these other groups, Al-Qaeda, all these other groups that are doing these evil, evil things, and they're watching what we do, and we're arguing over waterboarding, and they go back and they probably to themselves are laughing at the stupidity and the weakness of our country. Do you agree with that?
I think they think we're weak and pathetic and ready for the taking.
You and I, we're like the twins, you and I, because John McCain just announced that he thinks it's terrible what I said, that we should do more of that. Can you believe this?
You know
John
what?
McCain just announced.
John McCain lost. He wouldn't even bring up Bill Ayers, Bernadine Dorn, and Reverend Wright during his campaign. He thought it was, that's over the line. I'm like, well, what do you mean? The guy sat in the pews of this guy preaching GD America for 20 years. Why is that not legitimate? Let me go through a list with you. So you're gonna build the wall.
Right.
You will get intelligence by waterboarding or by what means are necessary.
Or worse.
Right. You've told me that you would work to balance the budget quickly because we can't keep robbing our kids.
The politicians are talking 25 years to balance the budget. Can you believe that?
It's insane.
25 years. Even your penny plan, which is in your plan, but you love it so much.
Yeah.
Even the penny plan
takes 6 years.
Is actually excellent. I mean, something like that can be instituted very easily, Sean. It's incredible.
You cut one penny.
Are you still in love with the penny plan, Sean?
Here's why I like it, because I can explain it in 5 seconds. You cut one penny out of every dollar every year for 6 years, and your budget is balanced. You stop robbing your kids.
Hard to believe, right?
And the math works. That's the amazing thing.
It's pretty simple.
You know,
it's a good plan. Other than one thing, the military, we have to spend money on military.
Yeah, you know what? And you could, all right, so you cut 2 cents out of every other dollar, and then you add the penny to the military.
Because there are some where you can do a lot more than a penny. I mean, frankly,
100%.
When you look at education, where Common Core is a terrible thing, and you look at Department of Education, I want to bring it local. I want to bring education to a local level. As you know, worldwide we're ranked very poorly in education, and we have Common Core out of Washington. Mm-hmm. And you have guys like Jeb Bush love Common Core. I mean, it's a disaster. So, frankly, I think that there probably are many places where you can do a hell of a lot more than pennies. But we'll look at it.
You have it's never gotten picked up, and I've asked you 3 times specifically, and you said you really, because people say, no, you once said years ago that you supported the Canadian single-payer system, but you've told me that you really like the healthcare savings accounts and free markets and portability and competition. Explain.
2 years ago, I looked at all the plans, and some do work for some countries, but they wouldn't work for us. And years ago, I liked the idea of studying. I want to study everything, but I also wasn't a politician. It didn't make any difference what I liked. I was a businessman at that time building a very big business, and it turned out to be a great business. But the one thing I do say to everybody, and you heard me say it last night, I do like the savings plan. I do like getting rid of the borders or the boundaries or the lines, as we call them.
You mean buying plans across portability, buying across state lines? Yeah.
Right, Sean. I have thousands of employees in different states. I can't bid outside of these states, and that's only put there because the insurance companies take care of the politicians. You understand that? You don't get the proper bidding. We would reduce health care so much if we could get rid of those artificial lines. To me, that's almost the most important thing, and it's only there because all of these big insurance companies take care of the politicians, including the senators, including the guys that I'm on stage with right now, and they take care of them so so we don't get that approval. I'll get it done. But there are so many different things we could do. The one thing I do say, though, Sean, and you understand this, and I think you agree with me, anyway, we have to do it. We work out a deal with hospitals. We work out a deal through Medicare. We can't have people dying in the middle of the streets. You understand.
No. Nobody wants that, and there's ways to handle that. And as a matter of fact, we already do that. Nobody can be rejected from a hospital right now that needs care. It's illegal.
And by the way, when I say that, though, Sean, my opponents say, oh, he likes single payer. He likes single payer. I'm saying, what the hell does that have to do with single payer? We can't let people die in the middle of the streets. We can't let people die on the sidewalks. We just can't do it. And we will take care of those people, maybe through Medicare, through hospitals that, frankly, are not doing a lot of business. But we have to take care of people there are people that don't have anything, and we have to take care of those people. And I talk to Republicans about it all the time. Sometimes I get standing ovations when I say it. Republicans aren't bad people, so we have to do something. And, honestly, Sean, if we're going to remain the Republican Party, if we're going to be a Republican Party, we can't be so foolish and so nearsighted we're going to have to take care of some people that don't have anything. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to compete. I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it from the heart.
There's a way to do it without creating dependency, and that's
absolutely correct.
All right, we got to roll, but it should be a big night for you, and congratulations. And we'll
don't congratulate me yet. We haven't.
The votes haven't been counted.
Been there yet. But
we're going to see you in South Carolina next week, and as always, thanks for your time. All right,
you're a fantastic guy, Sean, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate you always coming on. Thank you.